From Recorded Future News and PRX, this is Click Here. At first glance, you might think the meteorologist on your local news is a bit like Vanna White, just pointing to colorful graphics on the screen with a big smile.
Like to buy a vowel?
Yeah.
E.
There you go, 2 E's.
But it turns out it's much more complicated than that. Just ask John Morales at NBC6 in Miami.
Now to the tropics. Believe it or not, there's a named storm out in the Caribbean, but it seems Florida will be spared.
Thank goodness. NBC6 hurricane specialist John Morales joins us now with a look at this never-ending hurricane season. John.
No, that's right. And for Central
The weather segment is the one segment of a newscast that is not scripted. We are not reading off a prompter.
John Morales has been studying Doppler radars and explaining the way air behaves like a fluid in the atmosphere to Florida TV watchers for decades. But lately, there's been an edge to his forecasts because the storms he's tracking don't behave the way they used to. Rising sea surface temperatures mean that even a modest disturbance can almost overnight explode into a Category 3 or 4 or even 5 hurricane. And once-in-a-century floods seem to be coming every few years.
As the Texas flood death toll has now surpassed 100. We don't want to waste any time.
And John knows in a place like Florida, where hurricanes are as common as an afternoon rain, the margin for error has vanished. That's why he leans on every new tool at his disposal, including the latest artificial intelligence.
AI models are already a player, are already being looked at by meteorologists like me, and I believe they're a big part of weather forecasting in the future.
For John, the arrival of AI in the weather business feels seismic, like the leap from hand-drawn charts to Doppler radar. And while today's models are far from flawless, their promise is hard to ignore. But through all this change, John himself has remained remarkably consistent. No theatrics, no doomsday scenarios, just weather.
My audiences have always known me as the just the facts, non-alarmist meteorologist.
Which is why it landed so hard when John sounded the alarm last June about the future of forecasting. The guy who doesn't do hype suddenly went viral. He was telling the world that something fundamental about the skies we all share is changing.
What we're starting to see is that the quality of the forecasts is becoming degraded.
I'm Dina Temple-Rest, and this is Click Here, a podcast about the people making and breaking our digital world. Today, grab your umbrella, because we're setting off on a story that starts in the clouds and ends in code. Artificial intelligence is already reshaping how we forecast the weather, catching storms sooner, warning us faster. But there's a catch. All that progress runs on streams of data. Balloons, satellites, sensors, all paid for with government budgets that are now on the chopping block. So what happens when innovation surges ahead just as the ground beneath it begins to give way? It's like asking a runner to break a world record while tying their shoelaces together.
We're on the verge of making so many amazing technologies available. AI is going to do great things and it can help us. But if I cut off your arm, how are you going to do things that require 2 hands?
Stay with us. Support for Click Here comes from Clean My Mac. If you're like me, your cloud drives are packed with files you don't actually need. Sync duplicates, old backups, random junk just gobbling up storage. Clean My Mac takes care of that with a new cloud cleanup feature. It connects to your accounts on iCloud, OneDrive, and Google Drive and scans to find large space wasters, both in cloud storage and on your device. And while my Mac health is apparently excellent, Clean My Mac found 8 gigabytes of junk on my computer and tons of duplicate downloads, and it removed a bunch of leftover applications I never use. Who knew? And this happens locally on my Mac, so my data stays safe. Clean My Mac has a whole suite of other features, too, including their Moonlight anti-malware engine. With just a click, the anti-malware tool scans and removes viruses, ensuring your Mac remains threat-free. Not everything deserves eternal storage, so why pay for it? Get tidy today with Clean My Mac. Try it free for 7 days and use the promo code CLICK to save an additional 20% on your purchase at cleanmymac.com. From Recorded Future News, this is Click Here. John Morales didn't set out to track hurricanes. For him, it all started with baseball.
I was a Santurce Crabbers fan, the Cangrejeros de Santurce. This is the team where Roberto Clemente played and many other greats.
As a kid in Puerto Rico, he'd sprawl on the floor, pencil in hand, copying box scores from the evening paper. And once every last stat was tallied, he'd turn the page from balls and strikes to storms.
You know, in the 70s mainly, before internet, you would get these hurricane tracking charts that would either be inserts in the local newspaper, or you could go to the hardware store and grab one of them.
John began sketching out storms, building his own weather reports by hand.
I would take down all kinds of information, what the barometric pressure was, what the trends were, what direction was it moving, what was the expectation.
He took that obsession to Cornell, where he studied meteorology and began entering weather forecasting contests.
I won a couple of times. A couple of semesters. I actually came out victorious.
He went on to work at the National Weather Service. He won Emmys. He spoke at the White House about climate change. But most of his career he spent at the local NBC affiliate in Florida, where, for the past 3 decades, he's become the voice Floridians trust when the clouds start to churn.
Meteorologist John Morales is joining us now to break it down for us. John.
Hi, good afternoon to both of you. And indeed, the advisory is in. This is still a formidable hurricane, now ranked as the second strongest hurricane.
For a long time, all the math that went into a weather forecast was done by hand, which meant predictions took days, sometimes weeks, and they were often wrong. Then came NOAA, satellites, radar, computers, and they managed to do in hours what once took humans days. What do you think people understand least about being a meteorologist?
I think most people have a preconception, if you will, that we're wrong half the time. And that's really pretty far from the truth. These days, we're right about 85% of the time and wrong 15% of the time.
Wow.
That's a pretty good batting average.
In fact, a 4-day forecast today is as reliable as a 1-day forecast was 30 years ago. Even so, John's superpower isn't just reading the models. It's in making the weather tangible, what it feels like to stand in the driving rain or bracing against gale force winds.
I try to make people understand what the howling wind would sound like. Try to understand what they would have to do if the wind was starting to damage some of the parts of their home, and where to go and what your safe room could be.
Last year, during Hurricane Milton, the most powerful cyclone of the season, that calm cracked.
It has dropped. It has dropped 50 millibars in 10 hours. I apologize. This is just horrific.
Millibars are how meteorologists measure air pressure, the weight of the atmosphere pressing down on us. In a healthy system, pressure stays steady. But in a hurricane, falling millibars mean the storm is getting worse, and a drop of 50 millibars in just 10 hours? Well, that's off the charts. And in that moment, John couldn't hide the weight of it. Normally, John Morales makes a point of being the island of calm in the storm. But moments like that, those flashes of humanity, are part of why John has become so beloved.
I've become a person that's not just a weatherman, not just a meteorologist. I am almost a trusted family member that folks go to for advice when it comes to preparing for hurricanes.
So when he tells his audience to worry, they know it's time to worry. And this year, John is about as worried as he's ever been. Not just about hurricanes or cyclones, but about a different kind of storm. And that's where we're headed next. Stay with us. Support for Click Here comes from ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN stops hackers from stealing your data by creating a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by top tech reviews like CNET and The Verge. I take my internet security seriously, and I know that ExpressVPN does too. It's easy to use and works on all your devices. You just fire up the app and you're protected. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/clickhere. That's expressvpn.com/clickhere to find out how you can get up to 4 extra months free. expressvpn.com/clickhere. Support for Click Here comes from Claude AI. Claude is the AI for minds that don't stop at good enough. It's the collaborator that actually understands your entire workflow and thinks with you, not for you. Whether you're debugging code at midnight or strategizing for your next business move, Claude extends your thinking to tackle the problems that matter. Who needs a regular search when you can have a conversation with Claude about what you're looking for? And, unlike some of the other AI helpers I've used, Claude doesn't retain information from previous conversations, so it's private. Ready to tackle bigger problems? Sign up for Claude today and get 50% off Claude Pro when you use my link, claude.ai/clickhere. That's claude.ai/clickhere right now for 50% off your first 3 months of Claude Pro. And that includes access to all the features mentioned in today's episode. claude.ai/clickhere.
At Radiolab, we love nothing more than nerding out about science, neuroscience, chemistry.
But we do also like to get into other kinds of stories. Stories about policing or
politics,
country music,
hockey,
sex, of bugs.
Regardless of whether we're looking at science or not science, we bring a rigorous curiosity to get you the answers.
And hopefully make you see the world anew.
Radiolab, adventures on the edge of what we think we know.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Click Here. Last spring, John Morales stepped onto a stage where the future of weather was up for debate.
There was a summer community meeting coming up for the American Meteorological Society, and they had asked me to be a panelist on it. And part of what we were going to be discussing was potential threats to America's weather enterprise, which involves...
The Society meets a few times a year, and if you flipped through the program for last year's event, you'd find dozens of panels circling one technology in particular, artificial intelligence. AI, it turns out, is doing for weather what it's doing for everything else, making sense of chaos.
Because there's so much uncertainty in the atmosphere, we don't have the ability to sense everything that's happening.
This is Amy McGovern. She's a computer science and meteorology professor at the University of Oklahoma.
And one of the things that AI is really good at is because it can give you an answer so quickly, you could do something like 1,000 different instantiations and see what's the most likely answer out of all of this.
There are a bunch of big tech companies trying their hand at forecasting weather with AI. One system has already been praised for beating traditional hurricane forecasts, sometimes predicting a storm's path 4 or 5 days before landfall. But broad accuracy is one thing, and pinpointing flash floods or sudden microbursts is another. And those are often the storms that matter most. To help AI systems improve, researchers have been feeding models more than just wind and temperature data. They've been adding in greenhouse gases, ocean chemistry, air pollution. Think of it as giving the system a broad education in earth science before sending it to grad school to specialize in hurricanes or air quality. Which brings us back to Amy McGovern. In addition to studying how AI works with weather, she also leads the NSF's AI Institute, which focuses on making these tools reliable enough to use in real-world forecasting. And she says, when it comes to weather, AI's superpower is making sense of huge data sets really quickly.
As opposed to a physics-based model that would take you a very long time on a very large supercomputer. And so by the time you got your answer, the event will be over.
And when it comes to weather, speed matters. The difference between a few hours and a few days can actually save lives.
A typical numerical weather prediction model, it takes a very long time. So it gives you a 24-hour forecast, but it takes about an hour to give you that new forecast. The AI model can give it to you in a second or two.
That's a huge leap. But Amy McGovern is quick to point out AI has blind spots. For one, it doesn't actually understand physics. The calculus equations that govern storms, they don't come naturally to an algorithm, which leads to some head-scratching results.
Things like you can't negatively rain, which should be obvious. Like if it's either raining or it's not sucking rain out of the atmosphere. But an AI model doesn't know that, right?
Negative rain. Try carrying an umbrella for that. But the real concern isn't the absurd mistakes. It's that AI learns from the past, and the past doesn't look much like the present anymore.
How do you predict the extremes if the extreme has never happened before?
And then there's the biggest hurdle of all, data. Because even the smartest AI is useless without the streams of information that feed it. And as John was preparing for that weather conference we mentioned before, he realized those streams of data aren't guaranteed.
In preparation for this panel, I learned a lot about Project 2025.
Project 2025, now one of the blueprints for the Trump administration. And buried inside of it was a plan that stopped John cold.
Project 2025 explicitly says that NOAA is to be, dismantled. Because the excuse was that NOAA is a climate alarmist agency and that it has no business doing that, and therefore...
NOAA is unique. No other country has anything quite like it. And it's the backbone of modern forecasting, collecting and distributing nearly all the weather data that scientists, governments, and companies around the world depend on. But Project 2025 calls for gutting it. The National Weather Service, the satellites, the research centers, the entire system that weather forecasting relies on. And while the conference buzzed about AI's dazzling promise, John saw something no one seemed to register. That the very flow of data itself, the satellites, the sensors, the models, could soon be at risk. And then John's worst fears came true.
All right, we're getting some breaking news that we've been following over the last hour with the Trump administration official confirming that about 5% of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration are being let go. That agency includes...
Right now, NOAA's budget is set to fall by 27% in 2026, which won't just compromise weather stations, but the agency's research centers, its aging satellites, even the hurricane hunters who fly into the center of storms to measure how quickly they're intensifying. And then there's one of the most surprising and most vital tools for forecasting the weather: balloons.
Well, it's not a party balloon, okay? I would say it's the size of a very small compact, like a Mini Cooper or a Fiat 500, right?
Even in the age of AI, the future of forecasting still rises on a thin skin of latex and a pocket of helium. If you've never seen one launched, picture this. An overcast morning in the parking lot of a squat brick weather station. A technician in a crisp white polo, National Weather Service emblem stitched over the pocket, steps outside, cradling what looks like a bundle of limp latex. Eventually, it'll swell to the size of the car John Morales talked about.
After that, we launch the balloon. It gets to about 100,000 feet, takes 90 minutes to pop, and then we...
This is the ritual. Every single day, at hundreds of stations across the globe, scientists walk out into the elements, sometimes rain, sometimes heat, sometimes biting cold, to release these giant, gleaming white orbs up into the sky.
3, 2, 1, go!
The two times the balloons are released are an hour before noon and an hour before midnight.
And dangling beneath each one, an instrument about the size of a grapefruit, climbing until it vanishes into the clouds, quietly sending back a stream of data that will help shape tomorrow's forecast.
The weather balloons carry an instrument that is delivering weather data, temperature, humidity, pressure, wind direction, and wind speed as it rises up to 100,000 feet in the atmosphere.
As it ascends, it beams back everything it sees, a live, high-resolution snapshot of the skies above, until the moment, sometimes hours later, when the balloon finally bursts.
In meteorology, there are no political boundaries. So whether it's Russia or Saudi Arabia or South Africa, everybody is releasing their own set of weather balloons. And this is what allows us to paint a picture of what's going on in the atmosphere.
There's something kind of romantic about it, isn't it? That all these people come out at the same time all over the world and release these Mini Cooper-sized balloons out into the atmosphere.
The mere fact that there is this level of cooperation internationally, right? The fact that they know that this international collaboration is going to lead to better results for everybody, because we're going to...
But lately, those snapshots are disappearing. The budget cuts have reduced weather balloons by nearly 20%, erasing enormous swaths of data.
I've seen some of the maps of where these gaps are. So, for example, you look at the Northern Plains and the Intermountain West, and there's huge gaps there with no data whatsoever.
Patchier data means patchier forecasts. Forecasts people rely on, whether to plan a picnic or to evacuate a home. As with many of President Trump's recent cuts, the thinking seems to be that private companies could do it better. Amy McGovern isn't so sure.
Which company is going to put in several $100 million per radar to cover the United States in radar data? Which company is going to put in several $1 million of ground-based observations to get precipitation and temperature at a really fine scale across the United States? The air quality, all of that. All of that data is all collected inside NOAA, and all of it is used.
And the private companies who are trying to innovate around weather, tech giants like Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Google, their AI models won't work without the data NOAA provides. So with that man-made storm brewing, John Morales did something he almost never does. Sounded the alarm.
So June 2nd was a Monday. It's the first weekday of hurricane season.
That night, he began his forecast with a story from the past, an old broadcast from 2019, when it seemed that Hurricane Dorian was going to hit Florida. John predicted it would turn back out to sea.
As you've grown accustomed to my presentations over my 34 years in South Florida newscasts, confidently, I went on TV and I told you, it's going to turn. You don't need to worry. It is going to turn.
And it did. It turned. Then he said something you never want to hear your weatherman say.
And I am here to tell you that I am not sure I can do that this year.
He laid it all out, the cuts, the data gaps, the layoffs.
Did you know that Central and South Florida National Weather Service offices are currently basically 20 to 40% understaffed? From Tampa to Key West, including the Miami office, 20 to 40% understaffed.
And then, looking straight into the camera,
this is a multi-generational impact on science in this country. I just want you to know that what you need to do is call your representatives and make sure that these cuts are stopped.
The broadcast went viral. He'd struck a nerve, not just in Florida, but across the country. Because weather is the most universal human experience. People expect to glance at their phones and trust the forecast. And that's John's point. Weather data isn't just a convenience, it's a lifeline. There are glimmers of hope. NOAA has announced plans to rehire hundreds of meteorologists and technicians. Public agencies and private companies are working to plug the gaps. And even citizen scientists are pitching in, collecting hyperlocal data in places NOAA can't always reach. But until the system is back at full strength, forecasting will remain at risk. Because weather isn't just numbers on a screen, it's a shared story of survival, of trust, of adaptation. And right now, that story is shifting, not just in the clouds above us, but in the halls of power, which means there's a choice to make. We can surrender to fragmentation, or we can build resilience. With AI, human expertise, volunteers, scientists, lawmakers, and communities working together, the forecast doesn't have to be just about storms. It can be about hope. This is Click Here.
Looking for more of the cybersecurity and intelligence coverage you get on Click Here? Then check out our sister publication, The Record, from Recorded Future News. You'll get breaking cyber news from reporters in New York, Washington, London, and Kyiv, among others. And you'll see for yourself why it attracts hundreds of thousands of page views every month. Just go to therecord.media.
Here are some of the top cyber and intelligence stories from the past week. It's Tuesday, September 23rd.
Some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize...
Jimmy Kimmel is off the air after he talked about Charlie Kirk's murder in one of his monologues. The alleged shooter's motives remain unclear, but Kimmel took aim at the administration's rush to politicize the case and cracked a few jokes at Trump's expense. A couple of days later, ABC suspended him indefinitely. Though it wasn't just the network acting on its own. The FCC chair warned broadcasters that they could face punishment for airing Kimmel's show. And the crackdown on opposing views doesn't stop there.
The DOJ has removed an academic study and data from its website, which indicate the government's own conclusion that the number of far-right attacks continues to outpace all other types of domestic violent extremism.
In the wake of Kirk's killing, Trump administration officials have painted homicide as a left-wing problem. But a study from the Justice Department's own research arm tells a different story. Or at least it did. It found that since 1990, there have been 42 lethal far-left attacks, and more than 200 coming from the far right. That study? Well, it vanished overnight. Initially, it was replaced by an apology notice, and then that disappeared too. A literal deletion of history, reminiscent of George Orwell.
A haunting and terrifying vision of what the world might become, a world of absolute conformity.
There is truth, and there is untruth. What are your true feelings towards Big Brother?
Once upon a time, NVIDIA was a little startup in the video game industry. Now it's the world's most valuable company, and it's teaming up with a rival, Intel, to work together on AI and data center chips.
NVIDIA said it would invest $5 billion into Intel.
The deal comes weeks after President Trump announced that the U.S. government was taking a 10% equity stake in Intel, making Uncle Sam one of the company's biggest shareholders. This new partnership, NVIDIA insists Washington kept its hands off. Wisconsin has opened its doors to a new $4 billion data center.
Microsoft has become a trusted partner that is integrating into our community.
Microsoft is pouring a whopping $7.3 billion into 2 data centers that will house NVIDIA's most advanced chips, promising 10 times the performance of today's supercomputers. The latest site will sit on land once promised to Foxconn's ill-fated factory. This time, locals are worried about water and electricity. And Microsoft says it will prepay energy bills and tap solar farms to blunt the impact the centers might have. But when the future of AI arrives in your backyard, it tends to leave a footprint. And finally,
this is Meta Ray-Ban Display.
Mark Zuckerberg is still chasing the metaverse. At Meta's annual conference, he unveiled $799 smart glasses with wristband controls and a lens screen and a voice AI.
Boss, WhatsApp video call.
There we go. Uh-oh.
Unfortunately for Zuck, not one, but 2 live demos failed on stage.
That's too bad. I don't know what happened.
Zuckerberg blamed the Wi-Fi. The audience applauded anyway. The dream of overlaying the internet onto the physical world lives on, apparently, even if it doesn't always work.
Today's episode was written and produced by Dina Temple-Raston, Sean Powers, Megan Dietrich, Zach Hirsch, and me, Erica Gaida. I was the lead producer. The episode was edited by Karen Duffin, fact-checked by Darren Ankrum, and contains original music by Ben Livingston, with some other music from Blue Dot Sessions. Our staff writer is Lucas Riley, and our illustrator is Megan Goff. Jesse Neiswanger and Jake Cook do our sound design and engineering. Click Here is a production of Recorded Future News and PRX. Tune in on Friday for Mic Drop, which features our favorite interview of the week. We'll see you then.
Looking for more of the cybersecurity and intelligence coverage you get on Click Here? Then check out our sister publication, The Record, from Recorded Future News. You'll get breaking cyber news from reporters in New York, Washington, London, and Kyiv, among others. And you'll see for yourself why it attracts hundreds of thousands of page views every month. Just go to therecord.media.